We would be remiss if we did not say it was presented by Symbol. And if you have not acted upon the great partnership that we have created with Symbol, I urge you to do so. I'm going to let John talk to you a little bit more about that great company and what they're doing for our listeners. But Symbol, we are appreciative of their partnership. John, tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so Symbol, if you guys don't already know, is the stock market for sports that allows you to trade sports teams just like stocks. And if it sounds that easy, I promise you that it is that easy. You go to their app, you go to their website, you have a whole market list of professional teams. They're currently set at a certain price, and depending on if the team does good or bad over a long-term timeline, that price either goes up or goes down. So you guys all know which teams are good, which teams are bad, and Symbol gives you a way to earn money off of that knowledge without the high fees and high losses of gambling. It's not gambling, it's more of investing, and you can use that knowledge to profit off of it. So you can use your sports knowledge to buy low, sell high, and earn cash payouts when your teams win. You can join the 2,000 plus early adopters who have already started to invest in their favorite teams, and you can do so by visiting www.symbol.app. That's www.simbull.app, and you can visit symbol.app/OPI to create a free account. And when you deposit, you can use the promo code OBI for a $10 deposit bonus. The Symbol Bengals, that stock price is currently in the $20-$25 range. And after they draft someone in the first round, that price is probably going to go up. So you want to make sure that you buy low right now before that price goes up a little bit. And then keep an eye on it during the season. If the Bengals end up doing well during the season, that price is even going to go up. So you can profit off of the Bengals' potential success this year. And you can do so by visiting symbol.app/OBI, enter the promo code OBI for a $10 deposit bonus. So this is the first time I've done a draft profile in a couple weeks. And last week I did a state your case about, the Bengals potentially being interested in more smaller school guys without, the illustrious pedigree. I'm doing a 180 this week. I'm not saying to just ignore what I said last week, but I want to go back to, what we can more expect the Bengals to do based off of their past one. Now I'm going to highlight Ohio State offensive lineman Wyatt Davis. And he just screams Bengal to me for the obvious reasons. Background, he was a consensus 5-star recruit out of California. I think he was the top guard coming out of that 2017 class that had Jeff Okudah, Chase Young, who also went to Ohio State. So he was being touted, I think, by Michigan, Notre Dame, Alabama. They were all recruiting him. I think Urban Meyer kind of swept in at the end to basically say, come join the Buckeyes, and that's exactly what he did. So he was more of I think he was a bench player in his freshman year in 2018. I think he started 2 games that season. So it was 2019, his true sophomore year. That was the first year that he did start, and that really did put him on the map, on the NFL radar. I think PFF had him one of the highest graded offensive linemen in 2019, which is also when Penei Sewell took college football by storm that season. And that's where we saw the best of Wyatt Davis. And then last year in 2020, when no one was sure if the Big Ten was even going to play football, unfortunately, it wasn't the greatest year for Wyatt Davis, because not only was the whole season kind of a mess, Ohio State barely even played 6 games that season, he also dealt with COVID himself. And I think that did make an impact on how he finished the season. So he didn't exactly look like the 5-star player that he was coming out of high school. He didn't look like the true sophomore starter that really earned that All-American status. So he didn't play at his best in 2020. And unfortunately, he did end the season suffering what looked like a scary knee injury against Alabama in the national championship. But at his pro day, he did not work out, but he said that he was doing fine, and he's 100% ready to go for whenever NFL camp starts. So there is no issue. There's no Billy Price type of thing with this where he's potentially going to miss time. And I think that's also a name that people are going to come to. Are the Bengals really going to take another offensive lineman from Ohio State high in the draft? Is that something that they should avoid? That's unfortunately another case of helmet scouting. Wyatt Davis is not anything like Billy Price for a lot of reasons, and I'll just get to just really the 4 that I think you can want to highlight with Wyatt Davis, what he does well. He gets out of his stance extremely quickly with no wasted movement. This guy is a natural athlete. We did not get to see him test, but in terms of just fitting in seamlessly in a zone blocking scheme as a guy who can just reach nose tackles and defensive tackles, just a couple gaps away, he can absolutely do that. He's not an insane athlete, and I don't think he would have tested like an insane athlete, but there is no wasted movement getting out of the sets, and I think that's going to be important for a Frank Pollock wide zone scheme. He stays low and he rolls his hips through contact, and that's when he does engage in those zone blocks. He plays with great leverage, and by rolling his hips, he's able to redistribute some of that power on the contact onto the opposing player, and he finishes guys. Like he takes guys to the dirt. So to have that athleticism and that scheme versatility, but also having that nastiness, that's obviously a plus for an offensive line coach like Frank Pollock. And in pass protection, he's one of the most proficient and technically advanced 22-year-olds that you will see coming into the NFL, because he has the ability to use independent hands. And what independent hands are is, some guys, I think Liam Eichenberg and Notre Dame guys, they always have these two-handed punches, and that's just what they teach. And it's powerful, but it can also lead you to trouble because guys can easily counter that. Having independent hands means that you can have your hands at multiple strike points, and you're able to counter edge rushers really quickly. You're able to use your hands independently, so you can use your right hand high, your left hand low, and you're able to use whatever leverage you have in pass protection to keep guys at bay. So he already has a great understanding of using his hands in pass protection. I guess if you want to talk about weaknesses with Wyatt, there was issues in identifying stunts and twists in pass protection. He did end up getting on the ground a couple times with some miscommunications, But that was also just his second year starting, and he's still a really young player. But entering the 2020 season, he was projected to be a first-round pick, and unfortunately, everything that happened in 2020, I think Matt Miller of the DraftScout.com said that there was possibility that he could potentially slide into the fourth round of this draft, just because he dealt with COVID. He didn't put up the best tape in 2020, and he's coming off of an injury now. So I don't know if he lasts that long, but I think if there is enough talk with that, there's a definite possibility that he can slide into round 3. And I think if the Bengals are sitting there, regardless of what they did in the first 2 rounds, if they're staring in the face a 2-year starter at right guard who is already incredibly proficient in his technique and has the athleticism, has the experience to do the concepts that they want, I think Wyatt Davis can come in immediately and start at their most important position of need on the offensive line. He has the pedigree. He has talking about bloodlines. His grandfather was Willie Davis, who was a Hall of Fame NFL player in the 1960s. Both his dad and his brother played at the college level. So he's been bred for this since day one, since he's been alive. I think they're going to really like his background. Obviously, he played, an hour and a half northeast of Cincinnati and Ohio State. I think they're going to like his ability to come in immediately and play at the position that they need the most, to have that background, to have that 5-star pedigree, to be able to find him in the 3rd round. I think it's going to be hard for them to pass that up.
Well, I don't want to sound like a dummy and just pretend like I've watched a lot of this kid. Unfortunately, I have not. But a lot of the things that you are saying are some of are resonating with me, because those are echoing some sentiments I have seen before. I guess I want to use this opportunity to kind of ask you some questions and maybe put you on the spot about this kid, if you don't mind, John. And I think when you say interior offensive lineman, Ohio State, a lot of talent, and you're talking Cincinnati Bengals, immediately the conversation shifts to, well, what about Michael Jordan and Billy Price, and why is this guy different? Similar schemes, obviously, because we're talking about real recent history with those other 2 names. So I guess, for the Bengal fan out there, and I know a lot of Bengals fans are Ohio State fans, I guess for the Bengal fans out there that have seen the struggles from both Michael Jordan and Billy Price that had high hopes there, and, you're talking about Wyatt Davis, an inconsistent 2020. What makes him different and or more promising for the Cincinnati Bengals than those 2 just offhand?
Well, again, like if he went to Notre Dame or Alabama, who were both in the process of recruiting him, I think there might be a different perception about him. He comes from a program that is more accustomed to producing quality NFL offensive linemen, but he chose to go to Ohio State, and him going to Ohio State did not make him a classic traditional Ohio State offensive lineman who ended up being extremely overhyped. Like Wyatt Davis is by far, just looking at him and him alone and independently, he's by far a better player than Billy Price and Michael Jordan ever were at Ohio State. Now, Wyatt never played center, so he never got in the conversation for the Remington Award, which is, I think, what Billy Price won. And I don't even know if Michael Jordan won, but maybe he was in consideration as well. But that was never really a thing for him. Billy Price, was a high school defensive tackle, a really scrappy dude who didn't have like size and length on his side, and he just had to work with what he had. And he always had those limitations that would eventually catch up to him in the NFL. Like Wyatt Davis is 34-inch arms. I think 33 and like 7/8 is the official designation there. 6'4", 315. So he's not, skinny and lanky and tall like Michael Jordan. Jordan has tremendous issues with just playing with proper pad level and getting under pads and playing with leverage. That's not an issue with Wyatt Davis. I think Pro Football Focus declared that his top strength is balance, which is obviously the opposite of Billy Price. I think they compared him to Kevin Zeitler, which in terms of just being a right guard, like there's nothing more that you could want for, at least, especially from the Bengals perspective. They already know who Kevin Zeitler is. So if they're able to draft a player who projects like Kevin Zeitler in the third round, that's already so much better than taking Billy Price in the first round, and even taking Michael Jordan as a flyer in the fourth round. Like Michael Jordan was never supposed to start in his rookie season, and I think that unfortunately did not do him any favors and put him more or less where he is today. Wyatt Davis was a more talented player coming into Ohio State as a 5-star recruit, as the best guard out of that class, and the guy who has the body type and the size, the strength and athleticism to actually be a quality NFL player.
Does he start right away for the Bengals, you think? If that's the pick, let's say, for instance, they get let's say, for the sake of argument, he is their first Wyatt Davis is the first offensive lineman that the Bengals take in this year's draft. Do you think that makes him an automatic starter at the right guard position day one, or do you think they'll kind of slowly move him along based on kind of what you talked about with the struggles with the other two, namely Mike Jordan being thrown into the mix right away as a starter?
I think if he's the first offensive lineman that they take, he would almost be taken in the second round, right? And if they take him in the second round, absolutely he would start. But if they wait until the third round to take an offensive lineman as Wyatt Davis, then there would still be that confidence that you believe that they would have in him, that he would be the starter, if not the front runner to start, right? So like ideally, Wyatt Davis is maybe the second offensive lineman that they take if he lasts into the third and fourth round, which is apparently a very real possibility. Like no one really knew what this guy's draft stock was after that injury. Like he was, loosely touted as a first round player because of that 2019 season, and I think that hype has kind of died down because teams really value the most recent tape that you have, and if you don't put up your best performance as you enter the NFL, there's going to be some questions about, this guy regressed. Is he going to continue to regress into the NFL? But if you pair him up with a quality offensive line coach and a scheme that benefits him, I think you can project him to be the good player that he was when he was in college. So if they take him in the second or third round as the first offensive lineman to take, I would say that he's the safe bet to start at right guard.
Okay. Chances you think the Bengals go that route, the Wyatt Davis route? Do you think they shy away based on their couple of issues with Ohio State offensive linemen? Do you think they say, I don't really care about that? I mean, this kid can play. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think this kid's kind of high up on their draft board? Just your own intuition there, or do you think they're looking maybe elsewhere?
Well, I bet they're gonna value like the opinion of Mike Jordan, who played with him in 2018. So they have that kind of in terms of getting to know him on the personal side. But if there is this talk about, the NFL might not be as high on him as certain media is, I don't think that they would take him at the top of the second round. I think if he would have tested and there would be more confidence in what he did last year, then yeah, I think he would be a second round target. But I think when the third round comes around, regardless of what they do in the first two rounds, like you can make a safe bet that they're going to double dip at offensive line, especially if they don't take one in the first round. So if they go offensive line at 38 and then they swing back around at 69, it could be very possible that Wyatt Davis is their best player available. And if they don't take him there and he's still there in the fourth round, you could basically put that in Sharpie that they would absolutely consider him there.
Well, good stuff, John. I just kind of hit cruise control and let you do your smart guy thing. I appreciate all the insight on Wyatt Davis, an interior offensive lineman, namely right guard out of Ohio State, for this week's prospect profile. We had another one on tap, but we're going long, so we will save that either for next week or maybe a special little video there. We're going to kind of get to a couple more as the draft is so close, but good stuff. Wyatt Davis undoubtedly is going to be one of the names talked about inside and outside of Paul Brown Stadium walls. Just want to remind everybody to subscribe to the Cincy Jungle podcast channel, whether it's our show you dig, Orange is the New Black, Matt Minnick's Chalk Talk, hopefully all of the above. Subscribe, leave a review. That helps us out. We appreciate all the support. We've continued to see some growth again this year as a podcast channel, and for this specific show. You can get it on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Megaphone, iHeartRadio, Spotify, all the major audio platforms. You can always subscribe to our YouTube channel, get some content that not only has our live shows and all that kind of stuff, but other extra content that we put up there. So check that out. We appreciate all the support.